Game of Thrones is one of the biggest series on Earth, even though the final season has come and gone. And none too soon, may I add. While the fifth season of the show was horrendous and lazy to say the least, the first 4 seasons of the show were masterpieces at their worst and flawless art at their best.
Father, I wish to confess.
While they are all loosely based on the source material graphic novels by George R.R. Martin, A Song of Ice and Fire, they both are much more differing than one would imagine.
I'm telling a version in my books, and the show, which had different constraints and different deadlines and different needs, has told a very similar story, close in some respects, exactly the same in some respects, different in other respects.
While they both have dedicated fan bases, it is clear that more people watched the show than read the graphic novels. It is easy to argue that the show was much more accessible to a wider audience, and the medium of consumption is much more mainstream and convenient than reading, thus resulting in a wider audience. But in today's video, I am here to argue that the Game of Thrones TV series was and is better than the Song of Ice and Fire graphic novels. Stick around, because this is a video any fantasy fan is not going to want to miss. Let me preface this by saying both of these series are amazing, and there is no objective answer to which one is better. And while they are both littered with flaws, as is any other piece of art, they both have some truly innovative and original items that make them unique. However, it is obvious to me that the show does a much better job of displaying those original items and makes them miles more entertaining to watch. For example, in the book series, Martin does a great deal of telling rather than showing, and any film TV buff out there knows that the first rule of storytelling is show, don't tell. In simpler terms, the story is likely to be more believable and engaging when the audience is shown why a fact is true rather than told why it is true. And in the graphic novels, a great deal of the reader's time is spent reading exposition on why Westeros and the political landscape of Westeros is the way that it is. Not only is it boring, but it's simply lazy. Having 2 characters have an otherwise meaningless conversation only to clue in the reader to one or more of the world's fundamental laws or truths is brutally insulting when you think about it. The show, on the other hand, does a much better job of letting the landscape explain to the viewer why things are the way that they are. Very seldom does a character have to converse with another character in a way that would be otherwise meaningless in order for the world to become fleshed out. For example, in the books, George R.R. Martin created a beautiful world with imaginative wonders, characters, races, religions, landscapes, and lore that it blows the mind to even fathom the creativity and passion poured into it. But the book only describes what the landscape is like and thoroughly explains everything rather than just showing it. Whereas in the show, they take advantage of the beautiful settings that they call Westeros, like Croatia and Iceland. The show never needed to explain what Westeros felt like, it just showed what Westeros felt like. The show allows the viewer to be fully engrossed in the landscape of Westeros rather than having to force the viewer to imagine it for themselves. Many fans have actually called this fact out and have stated that George R.R. Martin has a lack of subtlety that is overabundant in his works. As of this recording, there are over 6,000 pages of graphic novels to read, and I would guess that 15% of them are exposition only, meaning that roughly 900 pages of his work is just exposition. Those 900 pages could have very well been spent on art to show Westeros rather than describe it, making the novels that much stronger. One of the strengths that the books have is their intricate web of characters. Seemingly every page, there is a new character that has the potential to become the next big plot driver. And in the same breath, on page 5, a character can seem like a big deal, only to suddenly meet his demise by page 8 of the same book. The intricacy and the web of characters is amazing, but it is also a bit confusing and leaves most characters with a fatal flaw. Most of the characters are only taken at their face value because of the sheer amount of other characters. Martin uses his characters to drive the story through their actions and their eventual deaths, which means that most of his characters get written into the story, do their part to advance the narrative, and then die in the very next scene. This means that most of the characters in the book other than the very essential main cast, have weak or no backstory. No character traits, no mannerisms, no heart, no soul, nothing. Just a part to play until they eventually bite the dust. The show, on the other hand, combines the best of both worlds. The sudden deaths, while sometimes troublesome in terms of character development, are awesome. Why? Because it keeps the viewers on their toes. Nobody is safe. But the show found a way to keep that element of surprise while still allowing the characters to have rich and fulfilling backstories that do two things. One, it allows the story to be made richer because everyone has elements about them that make the viewer feel something for them. It could be love or hate, doesn't matter, but at least they feel. And two, it allows for their surprise death to mean so much more. The feelings that the viewer builds for these characters that do eventually die are amplified thanks to the backstory and depth these characters were given. The books also commit a pretty heinous crime in my opinion, and that is the fact that the plot is usually put on the back burner in favor of other things. Which may sound bad, however, the books were written in 1991 and released in 1996. There was simply no way that Martin could have known that in 2011 they would be brought to life in the form of an episodic TV show. Martin sought out to make a fantasy epic filled with magic and war, not a tight-knit, plot-filled show. The books can sometimes seem obsessed with war, gore, nudity, and taboo themes, whereas the show just touches on all of these, but leaves them mostly on the wayside in favor of the strong plot. Sure, the show has some nudity and some incredibly dicey taboo scenes, but for the most part, the war and gore elements are used only to add to the plot, rather than to engulf it, unlike the books, which put those things first. While the books have their fair share of faults, it must be reiterated that they were never originally written to become a show, and should not really be compared to the show directly. It is an unfair comparison, and in reality, the show does do something pretty horrendously. I'm looking at you the entire 5th season. But all in all, both of these narratives are pretty amazing, and if for some reason you still have yet to consume either medium of entertainment, you should do so ASAP. That's all we have for you guys today on the channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Which of these do you think is better? Do you think House of the Dragon will surpass both of them? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave a like on the video and to subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. Also, make sure you ring the bell so you never miss an upload. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we will see you all in the next video.